Hey everyone! Today I thought I would talk about some books that I've read this year because I've actually read quite a few. If you've been here for a while, you know that I've been going through a ridiculously long reading slump, like almost 5-year long reading slump, and I think I finally cracked it. Before this year, I almost strictly read only YA fantasy, and I think that was heavily contributing to my reading slump. Now I've branched out to adult fantasy, and now that I listen to audiobooks, I plan on reading more middle grade. I don't know why, but listening to YA and middle grade books just works so much better for me, and I find they hold my attention more in that format. I also just get through books way faster. So yeah, I listen to audiobooks now and it's honestly changed my life. Just this last month, I've gotten through 4 books that way, and normally that would have taken me almost a month per book. But yeah, let's get into the books because this is going to be long. So the first book I read this year was A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. If you follow me on Instagram, you would have gotten my play-by-play of this book and you'll know how I feel about it. This book has pretty much turned me completely off all of Sarah J. Maas's future works. Well, I mean this and Kingdom of Ash and Crescent City. This book follows Feyre's sister Nesta. Nesta was pretty much just a massive bitch for all 3 of the ACOTAR trilogy, and this book was meant to justify her terrible behavior and basically just make everyone happy rainbow sunshine. I was honestly excited for this book. I loved Nesta. I'm all for bitchy characters, but this just made me hate her. We got to see inside her mind and learn her side of the story and get to the truth behind why she's such a bitch to Feyre and everyone else, and learn about her powers or whatever. Honestly, we never got to learn about her powers, and I feel like all of the cauldron stuff was never really cleared up. Her reasoning for being a massive cunt to her family didn't add up to me and just made her super unlikable. I didn't see the character growth that pretty much everyone else that read this seemed to see, and her relationship to Cassian made less sense in this than it did in the ACOTAR series. I was all for their relationship, but this book just killed any chemistry I felt like they had. I didn't understand why Cassian was attracted to Nesta at all, apart from her being hot, I guess. And let's talk about the sex scenes. Now, I'm all for hot and heavy scenes in books, but these were like reading a porn script. I felt dirty and gross after reading them. I just really didn't like them. It really made me view the characters in a different light and overall ruined the whole experience. I know other people liked them and kudos to those people, but for me, they were too much. I see that kind of detail as erotica, and that's not what I signed up for. I wanted adult fantasy, and that really took a backseat to the smut. And that is exactly what this book is. Smart. I also have to mention that I'm so sick of female characters that train every fucking day doing the exact same regime as their male counterparts, and they just get toned while the guys look like fucking pumping iron era Arnie. It's bullshit. If you want to know more about the plot and issues with this book, I highly recommend With Cindy's videos on it. She does a great job breaking it down while also giving dramatic readings. I recommend headphones. Next book is Chain of Iron by Cassandra Clare. This book is the second in the Last Hours trilogy. It's set in the early 1900s England and follows the children of the characters from the Infernal Devices. Infernal Devices is my favorite series, and Cassandra Clare is probably my favorite author. This book follows Cordelia Carstairs and James Herondale after they are forced to get married to save Cordelia's reputation after she sullies it by lying about James's whereabouts during the first book. We also get more of Lucy Herondale and Jesse Blackthorn's story as they navigate their whole ghost and alive person relationship, and Jesse's crazy sister Grace, and blah blah blah. There's too many characters to really give a whole synopsis, but I really enjoyed this book, and I honestly think I have this to thank for me wanting to keep reading. This book is written so beautifully, as all of Cassandra Clare's books are, and it's just so immersive and great. There's a lot of characters to keep track of, but I feel like this book handles it a lot better than the first book did. It's a really fun read. I love the setting, I love the time period, and the characters are great. Of course, the romance is amazing. It's just really good. I don't really have anything else to say except that I loved it, and I can't wait for the next one, and that I'm so excited for Cassie's first adult fantasy that's due to come out in 2022. The next book I read is actually an indie book. This is Gilded Rose by Emma Hamm. It is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, so right up my alley. I read the sample chapters on Amazon and totally fell in love with the premise and the setting of the story, and bought it not long after reading those chapters. Unfortunately, it totally slowed down after that point and ended up being super repetitive and felt really stretched out when it didn't need to be. I think this book was edited by the author, and I really wish that she'd hired someone to do it, because I feel like it had the potential to be amazing. It just needed a little outside push to get it there. I think the author also had a bunch of other self-pub authors read it and give feedback and help with the editing. And again, I wish she'd hired someone else to do it, because I don't think those people were as critical as they should have been, or Emma may have ignored their suggestions, I don't know. But I did really love the first few chapters, but towards the middle got very slow, very repetitive, and the end just zoomed by. I would have liked more development in the relationship between the two MCs, as it felt like it just came out of nowhere. But in saying all of that, I am very curious about Emma's latest works, as I feel like she started out super strong and had potential from the beginning, so I might give her new vampire series a try when that comes out. More recently, like the last couple of days before filming this I read volume 1 of a new manga by an artist and author that I love. It's called Mao, and it's by Rumiko Takahashi. She also wrote my favorite manga slash anime of all time, Inuyasha, which I've talked about in streams 100 times. Mao is about a teenage girl named Nanoka whose parents died in a freak accident when she was 8. Nanoka was also in the accident, but she was completely unharmed and found outside of the car, despite the fact that all the windows and doors were sealed. As a teen, she discovers that the area where the accident happened is now having some weird activity. She goes to check it out, and as she passes through the gate to an old shopping district, she passes back through time to the Taisho era, or the early 1900s. She is then attacked by a yokai, or demon, and saved by Mao. As the story goes on, we find out that Mao has been cursed by a cat demon, and he's trying to hunt it down to lift the curse, and they suspect the accident that Nanoka's parents died in, and Nanoka being able to travel through time, might be related to that same cat demon. I'm super excited to keep reading this series. It's very similar to Inuyasha, but I honestly don't mind. The two lead characters are so different to Inuyasha and Kagome, and I'm really excited to see how their stories and relationships develop. The next two books were finishing books, like I was halfway, if not most of the way through them, and just finished them off. The first was Fiery Heart by Rochelle Mead. I started reading this when I was in high school, after getting about halfway through Vampire Academy series, and then I dumped that series. I loved them so much back then, but I think I stopped reading them when I started Throne of Glass and just never got back to them. This series is about a witch working as a bodyguard to a royal vampire while attending a private human high school. In this world, witches are meant to hate vampires to the point of hunting them, but for some reason that I cannot remember, they end up working together, and I think this whole series is about them turning on the vampires to wipe them out, but obviously this being a YA series, the MC has fallen for a vampire, so she doesn't want that. I may read the next one. I already own it, but I'm honestly not into that idea right now, so we'll see. I also finished up Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare in audiobook format. I've been struggling to read YA recently, and especially urban fantasy, but listening to this via audiobook was great. It's the first book in the Dark Artificers series, which follows Emma Casteres and Julian Blackthorne and his siblings as they investigate a bunch of ritualistic downworlder murders and a bunch of other crazy life stuff that I don't want to spoil for people in case you read this. It's really hard to talk about Cassie Clare books without giving spoilers, honestly. This book was definitely not one of my favorites from her, hence why it's taken me almost 5 years to read. And I think it has to do with the urban setting and also how many characters we were following and had to keep track of. It was a lot. Julian is like the third oldest of 7 kids, and then there's Emma and Christina and the tutor chick, and it was just too many. But now that I kind of know who they all are, I should get through the next one in the series a lot faster, but I may stick to audiobooks. The rest of the books were all audio reads. First, I read Seasons of the Storm by L. Cosimano. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with pronunciation. It's about 4 people who died and were brought back by Gaia to be the physical embodiments of the 4 seasons. To make the season pass, the ending season needs to be killed by the coming season. So summer kills spring, autumn kills summer, winter kills autumn, spring kills winter, and so on. It's basically a never-ending cycle of these 4 people killing each other unless one of them performs poorly and gets sent to another area, or killed by Kronos, because he does that. The winter that the book follows, Jack, is in love with the spring that kills him every year, Fleur, and he wants to be with her, so he starts exploring ways to escape the system that they're stuck in. That is a terrible synopsis, but it gets the job done. Anyway, it was a good book. I enjoyed it. There's a sequel, and I don't know if I want to read it or not because it's not really set up to need one, but I may get around to it. I then read The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. I really wish I'd physically read it because it was really twisty and turny with the timeline, which made it tricky to keep track of while listening. I kept thinking I'd missed some vital piece of information, and then the next chapter would be a flashback that would explain everything. But it was really good and I did really enjoy it. It's really hard to summarize, but basically there's a society of demon ghost things that live in an area of London that people think has been destroyed, and after the MC Paige kills someone with her psychic powers, she gets sent there to basically be a slave for them. I really liked that this book talked so much about the shitty history that Ireland has with England, because I feel like it's a part of history that a lot of people don't know about, forget about, or ignore, and it should be remembered. So if you've read The Bone Season and you know what I'm talking about with like the kind of conflict that it shows between the Irish and the English, look into that further, because that wasn't made up for the book. That is like based on reality and real life, and I think a lot of people don't know that. But yeah, I really like how the book handled that and added it as kind of just an element to have in the story and kind of bringing attention to that rift, I guess, that's there. I then read Magician Apprentice by Raymond E. Feist at the behest of my partner, who absolutely loves the book and has been trying to get me to read it for years. Apprentice is technically the first half of book 1 in the Rift War saga, which is a trilogy, so that much. It was like 20 hours long and it was only half. It was super slow. Honestly, kind of boring. If I was physically reading it, I would not have finished it. It did pick up at the end and actually got interesting. It just ended and gave me massive blue balls, especially because I need to wait till mid-October for the second book unless I want to read it physically. I then read 2 V.E. Schwab books, or technically 1 V.E. Schwab and 1 Victoria Schwab, and they were City of Ghosts, which is a mid-grade book, and Neowitch, which is a YA. I absolutely loved City of Ghosts. It was amazing and everything I could ever want in a cute little ghost storybook. It was just great. It's about Cassidy Blake, a 12-year-old girl who almost died and now she can see ghosts. She even has a friend that just hangs around her all the time. Her parents are authors that write about hauntings for a living, but now they're expanding into the world of television. Their first stop is Scotland and they're bringing Cassidy with them. While in Scotland, Cassidy learns of a local legend about a woman who steals children and gets caught in the legend herself. It was so good, like chef's kiss 1,000 times. I need to read the others and it was just amazing. I can't wait for Gallant, which is Schwab's next release. I believe it is another ghost story, but I think it's YA. And then there's Neowitch. It's about a town called Nea. There's a legend about a witch who steals children. I think it was a bit unfortunate that I read these two back to back because Neowitch was kind of ruined for me just because of how similar the plot is to City of Ghosts. It's also super YA. I mean, it came out in 2011. Need I say more? The MC, Lexi, is fine, I guess. She's the classic stubborn YA protagonist that doesn't want to listen to authority and is uninterested in marriage until a dark and sexy stranger rolls into town. The romance seemed to come out of absolutely nowhere. The storyline was very similar to City of Ghosts and the characters were a bit cliched. It was overall fine, but not one I'd read again. The story at the end, the Ashbourne boy, was almost more interesting than the rest of the book. So I think that says enough. But yeah, that's what I've read so far this year, and it's only September. So I'm hoping to get through Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff, Magician Master by Raymond E. Feist, which is just the last half of Magician, The Mime Order by Samantha Shannon, Dracula by Bram Stoker, Nevermore by Jessica Townsend, and The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang by the end of the year, but might be a bit too much. We'll see. I'm honestly not so stressed about it because I've already passed my goal for this year. If you've watched my goals video, I had a goal of reading 1 book a month, so 12 books for the year, and I've already reached that goal. I've already passed that goal, I think, now. So I'm not too stressed. I would like to finish those books, but we'll see. It might be too much. Well, that's the end, so thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed. I have links in the description to my Instagram, Redbubble, and website, a book you can purchase, and some charities that I would love you to check out. Thanks again so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you in my next one. Bye.